Right, hello everyone, welcome to the locker room. Alex has had a smile on his face for the past 5 minutes, and who can blame him because Rangers and Russell Martin get after the perfect start with a 2-0 win versus Panathinaikos. Alex, it would feel rude if I didn't come to you first. How are you feeling after that?
Buzzing, absolutely buzzing. I think we'll get into the details in a minute of the match, but yeah, that's a great result. Two fantastic goals. One of them a little bit of a deflection, but we'll take those. And Finlay Curtis, we said it was a big moment for him, a moment where he could step up and prove himself and show to the manager why he was selected tonight, and he did that. And then Diego Gisatama, I'll get into that later on as well, but he looked brilliant and fantastic finish for him. Helped a little bit by the red card, but yeah, I'm buzzing. A really great result to take over Greece.
Aye, and we should say before we get into the game, rest in peace to Lisbon Lion John Fallon and also music legend Ozzy Osbourne, who sadly passed away earlier on this morning. But Ethan, getting into the game, it was weird, right? Because we spoke all pre-show about obviously, the Rangers team and how there was some selections maybe people didn't agree with, but you've got to say the first 5 minutes in particular, Rangers started off very, very well in attack.
Yeah, definitely. The first 5 minutes or so, Rangers were on top and had a great start to the game. After that, until really maybe the last 5 minutes of the first half, it was Panathinaikos that had most of the play, but Rangers held in there. Jack Butler made some good saves. And I think Rangers just grew into the game as it went on, especially in the second half. Obviously, the red card helps, but Rangers were in a good flow before then. They obviously got the goal, a brilliant goal from Finlay Curtis, and a brilliant moment for him. 18-year-old scoring his first competitive Rangers goal on a stage like that, and the goal it was. I know it took a deflection off the defender, but yeah, and a brilliant moment for him. And I think he deserved that because although he didn't really work for him at going forward, he didn't have much luck. There wasn't really between the front three, especially in the first half. They didn't really get in the game at all. Finlay Curtis done a lot of sort of working back and keeping the ball. He made some really good challenges on the edge of the Rangers box, and then he gets rewarded by the moment of magic, you could say. And then obviously the red card comes. Rangers really start to settle into the game, and they played really well. I thought Raskin was absolutely brilliant after the red card. I thought Joe Rothwell had a really good game as well. But yeah, a really good start for Rangers and a really good result to take over to Athens.
Alex, you look at it after that, and I think it was around about the 8th minute mark, and one thing you notice all game is the fullbacks are very inverted, so Max Aaron's is sort of near the halfway line. He gets the ball nicked off him. Panathinaikos hitting the counter-attack. I think it goes out for a corner, and then you've got to say, we spoke about before the game, Jack Butland being really important in this game. He made a couple of very good saves earlier.
Yeah, he did, and I think just before Rangers' opening goal, he made a crucial save as well. He spilled it a little bit, managed to get it, got it out, and quick in transition, and obviously Curtis with a finish. But yeah, Jack Butland was super important. There was a few really close range ones. That one in the first half sticks out to me, where he gets down to it, and then Palestri followed it up and then rattled it off the post. I'm not yet. I'm buzzing about the victory, but I'm not under any illusions. It was a tough game. Panathinaikos could have been 2-3-0 up in the first half, and Butland stood in the way of a lot of that, and it was really important. You mentioned there Max Aarons. He looked really uncomfortable, sort of playing that inverted role. I think when he looked most comfortable is when he was out hugging the touchline. I think two of the goals came from him hugging that touchline. Well, not two of the goals, both the goals came from him hugging that touchline and moving it on quickly to the left winger. So He got caught a few times, and I wasn't impressed with his performance up until maybe the 55th, 60th minute. He started coming into it a wee bit more.
I think that's sorry. I was just going to say I think that's interesting because you look at the opposite side and you look at Tavernier, and I thought he was more comfortable than at least Max Aarons was in the inverted role anyway. I thought that suited him a bit better.
Yeah, I would definitely tend to agree with that. And obviously, I think all four of the defenders gave away the ball or get caught on the ball at moments. But I think that's going to happen when you're trying to play the style of play with how many players are rotating in and out of positions of the pitch, the inverted fullbacks. But yeah, I thought James Tavernier did look pretty comfortable. And Max Aarons, or Max Aarons as they were calling him on the commentary, less so. But that's only natural for him if he's playing on the sort of opposite side to what he's used to. But yeah, what I noticed is there's a lot of demand on the two central defenders, Suter and De Ziga to play out, and they've done that well for most parts. I think they obviously got caught on it a couple of times. De Ziga, that one time he was sort of dilly-dallying, and I think that was what led to the red card. After Rangers cleared the ball and then Cutters broke away and it was a clear second yellow. But yeah, a few Rangers players looked really good in the sort of the new style. Some less so, some are really quiet. I thought Kieran Dowell never really got into the game at all. And yes, he's playing out of his natural position, so you've got to give him that. Danilo was pretty quiet. He had that shot in the first half, the volley that deflected wide.
Yeah, sorry to jump in, but I just think Danilo just was alone up there for majority, and he didn't get any service. And even though Panathinaikos were down to 10, and they were maybe a bit tired, I think when Rangers made that triple change, you could see the difference in quality between that front three and the front three that started the game. Sorry to jump in there, Ethan, but I just wanted to make that point.
No, not at all. And I think something that was crying out to me watching the first half is that I think what Martin's trying to do is it looks like he likes trying to isolate the wingers one-on-ones with a fullback, but neither winger really. Curtis in the second half definitely was a lot better at it, but they never really took on their men or beat their men at all. And that was why Rangers were really struggling in the first half to sort of create chances for most of it. Obviously, you've seen with Gassama inside a few minutes that he's the type of winger that's going to get defenders turned. And I mean, it's a brilliant goal. You can't start your debut any better than that, really. But yeah, I think Gassama and I think Rangers will bring in at least one more winger as well, because I think that's what Martin wants, pace on the wings. And yeah, Rangers looked a lot better in the second half as well.
Yeah, sorry, Robbie. I just wanted to address one thing that I got wrong before the game. I said Rothwell would be more on the ball and Raskin would sit. Complete opposite. And Nico Raskin was excellent, I thought, in that role, getting forward, sort of pressing. He made a lot of opportunities. Dragowski had to make that, kind of double save from him off of those two chances. And, he was, I just thought he showed a side of himself that I don't think we've seen fully before. We've seen flashes of it, but he looked really comfortable, and he took on. We were wondering who was going to take on that attacking role in the midfield, and I think Raskin took it on really, really well.
I'd agree with that. I think it's interesting with Raskin specifically in the first half, and I do agree with Ethan that after the red card happened, they got a lot more comfortable. But when they were sort of playing the inverted fullbacks and Max Aarons was dropping into the middle, and you sort of seen Raskin drift out to fullback, I thought he just looked as uncomfortable as Aarons did drifting into the middle for that short period of time. I think that was something Martin probably tweaked a bit later in the game to make sure Raskin was staying more central, but it was something I found interesting that when they were swapping positions, they both looked as uncomfortable as each other.
Yeah, There was so much rotation, it was hard to sort of keep track of where everybody was between the Rangers midfielders and defenders. But no, I thought Raskin was excellent, especially in the second half. And yeah, as Alex said, it's not really something we've seen from him because he's usually been in that sort of reserved 6 role. But as an 8, he was just everywhere really. He was coming deep to pick up the ball. He was going in behind, and yeah, I thought he was probably up there for man of the match. Obviously, Finlay Curtis gets it, fair enough. But yeah, I think a real positives to take for Rangers, and I know Alex said that it could have easily Panathinaikos could have had the lead, but that happens in these games. It's fine margins. I think Rangers' first goal and the red card come from Panathinaikos attacks directly after Panathinaikos attacks. So that's how quick that things can change. And I think that's one thing we'll see from Russell Martin is that he's going to try and get his team to get the ball up the pitch and score as quick as possible. And I see a lot of, I don't know if any of you see this, but I see a lot of similarities to Ange Postecoglou's style of play and that opening match. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, but
yeah, it's better.
we'll see. It might be, but
I'm kidding.
I think the way Rangers certainly tried to press in the first sort of 20-30 minutes was a lot of similarities. You've seen the sort of 3 forward players putting on a lot of pressure on the Panathinaikos defence, and I'd argue that Rangers led them into a few mistakes just as much as Panathinaikos did. Rangers, if you go back to that chance on the 80th minute, it all comes because it's a bit of a miscommunication on the ball for Aarons. Panathinaikos capitalise on it, and as we spoke about before the match, it was going to be a big night for Jack Butland. They certainly made the case in that one because it's a phenomenal save. The Panathinaikos player should do better on the rebound, but it's some save to get done.
Yeah, and he made a few really good saves. There was a 1-on-1 from a free kick as well, where the Panathinaikos player poked it.
That was a really nice move as well from the free kick. Just playing it across, and then the deep runner, completely untracked. And yeah, it was a really, really good save. But I was really impressed with that movement because I was thinking he had to be offside. And I saw him and I watched the replay, and no, he just ran through from deep. Nobody saw him, and yeah, forced Butland into a really good save.
Yeah, I think Panathinaikos, I think they mentioned this. Neil McCann mentioned it on commentary, I think, but the right-hand side looked to be the kind of dangerous side most of the time. Obviously, Vangianidis, I think he's called, the Greek right-back, he obviously gets sent off, so he won't be selected or available for selection for the second leg. And Pellistri obviously missed that massive chance. I think you could see at points in the game, certain points of the game why he was at Man United, and see at certain points why he never made it at Man United.
Did you like his Tom Daly impression?
I do remember seeing that one. Yeah, the simulation yellow card was kind of cut. I know he didn't get it, but it was kind of coming for Panathinaikos. Not the worst team I've ever seen in Europe, but they were guilty of. They were certainly guilty of it in the first half.
There was a point early in the game, I think it was about the 13th minute mark or whatever, where Pellistry's getting ready to shoot a shot, and it's interesting because I was actually really impressed with Curtis on his defensive side of the game. He runs back about 15-20 yards to get the tackle in on Pellistry. It's stuff that you don't really tend to see for wingers. Wingers and particularly more forward players tend to stay forward a lot more, but you can see Curtis was absolutely bombing up and down that left-hand side.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I don't think in the first half especially he had the best sort of case of showing his attacking skills, but in terms of keeping the ball, keeping possession, tracking back, I think it was twice he done it. I remember the one you're talking about, Robbie, where I think Pellistry's about to shoot and he just gets in there.
Second one was Pellistry again, and he was trying to shuffle through, and Curtis just got in the way and took it out again. Pellistry obviously looking for a penalty off of that. But it was excellent work up and down from Findlay Curtis, and just we've spoke about how good his goal is, but I just want to focus on that the first touch he takes that just completely takes his man out of the game, and he shapes up, gets a wee bit lucky with a deflection, but that's that it's those moments, it's that bit of quality that separates like decent players to good players, and I don't mean to draw comparisons because I think they are slightly different players, but that's something that you've never really seen from the likes of Ross McCausland, who looks like he's on his road out to Aris Limassol. He's had Aris Limassol, by the way, trying to build Rangers B team or whatever, but yeah, he did have moments of quality, but he just doesn't have, from looking at it, even from when he broke into the team, he just doesn't have that same quality on the ball that I think Findlay Curtis has.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it wasn't always there. You can tell that he's still a bit raw, and he is only 18. We've got to remember, but I thought certainly after he got that goal and he had confidence, and obviously he gets the second yellow card for the right back that gets him sent off, and he just looked a lot more confident in the second half. And I said before on the pre-show about it's his shirt to lose, and I don't think he'll be taking out the team for next week after that performance.
Maybe.
Well, no.
His replacement was pretty damn good.
No, but I don't think you can take him out. I think I think you would take Kieran Dowell out and put Kusama on the other side.
I don't know. I don't know if this is just a bit of recency bias, but see, after his sort of 15 minutes, I was thinking, could I put him up for my man of the match shout here? He was just electric. He was absolutely, every time he got on the ball, he looked dangerous. And, I think I think I kind of agree with you, Ethan. I don't think Curtis should lose his starting spot, but Jedi Gassama looked brilliant.
It's just interesting how football works, because if Gassama's he wasn't 100%, so he's on the bench, and the fellow Asgard, then they get the injury. Curtis probably doesn't even make the starting 11, but we get to see his quality. And I'm taking it back a bit to around about, I think it was the 30th minute mark, and a start that really told the tale of that first half an hour was touches in the opposition box. Rangers only had 1 in Panathinaikos' box, and the Panathinaikos had 18 in Rangers' box. I mean, Alex, you pinpointed it before the game. If Rangers didn't start fast and start attacking and being more comfortable, the crowd were going to go on their back, and they did for the first 30-35 minutes. The crowd were really starting to grumble a bit.
Yeah, and unfortunately that's always going to be the way of it at Ibrox. If it looks like it's not going their way, they can grumble. If a player plays a backwards pass when they think there's options forward, they'll moan, and it can be difficult. But the players stuck in it, and we mentioned the first 5 minutes of the first half, the way Rangers started. I think they actually did finish the first half a bit stronger as well, which let them build and go into that second half. Obviously, Panathinaikos had their opportunities in the second half before the red card, and then I think they were trying to hold out for the 1-0. But I think the players did show a bit of resilience.
Yeah, I mean, Rangers, I think it was around the 35-minute mark. I think Danilo has a header that just drifts wide. I think he has another shot as well where, either way, he hits it so sweetly. Like, it's probably perfect as he could get it. It's so unlucky that it takes a deflection and go wide at that point. You think Rangers can break this team down, because I'm sort of looking at the 15-20 minutes before that going, Rangers are going to struggle to try and break this team down. They were sitting in they were a bit deep, but they were making it look easy to defend at times, even.
Yeah, they were. especially in that period in the first half. It looked like Rangers were really lacking creativity or lacking a way to create chances. They obviously got the break towards the end of the half, and they went through that little flurry of chances, and then they carry the confidence into the second half, where it becomes a bit of more of a back and forth game. They get the goal and they get the red card right off the back of Panathinaikos attacks and just counter attacking. And then the third goal comes off a counter attack started in, I think, the Rangers corner flag. So yeah, really, really good for Rangers because, as we said, it wasn't. I don't think it was Russell Martin's ideal starting 11 or anything close to it. So the fact they've turned over a team like Panathinaikos 2-0 is a massive step and a massive step in the right direction and a big starting point. There's still a lot to do going over there. The job, I wouldn't say, is finished, but Rangers have got to be confident going over there because it's a massive lead.
Alex, you then get to half time, and I'm interested to get your thoughts because we've seen the first 45 minutes competitively for Russell Martin's side. We've seen a lot of errors, big players, specifically Mark Aaron. So I don't want to just pinpoint because I don't like just pinpointing players, but he was one that, and I'm sure that he gave away the ball quite a lot, especially playing that inverted role. What were your sort of thoughts at half time about what you've seen so far?
I think so. During that first half, I was thinking, "Oh no, this we're going to get ripped through by these guys because they were good. They were playing nice stuff. The way they would play out, Rangers were trying to press, and they were just playing around them, and it was leaving them really exposed at the back as well. I think it might have been you, Ethan, that mentioned earlier. Suter and Dejiga had to cover a lot of the time. And and I was, but that sort of stronger finish to the first half gave me a little bit more confidence. I could see what they were trying to do, and if it works, I think it will be a really effective way of playing. But you could see there were still teething issues when Ethan mentioned it again. The sort of misplaced passes, maybe dilly-dallying on the ball a little bit, and players maybe not 100% on their positions, their positional awareness, because it seemed like a lot of the time the fullbacks were going in, there was no cover, and they would be exposed a lot of the time. And it would either be Raskin, Rothwell, Diamandi breaking their necks to get back, or it would be the centre-backs, like I said, coming out to cover. So it did make me a bit nervous, but yeah, I think the second half they showed a bit more of what it's about, and it was interesting as well because I think with the 10 men putting everyone behind the ball, I think we got to see a bit of what it'll be like weekly as well. They mentioned it on commentary. Rangers having to try and break down an opposition that are camping in their box. And, they didn't really get a goal from that because the other goal came from Rangers winning the ball off Panathinaikos in their own half and breaking. But, I think we did see some elements. I think there was a cross from Tavernier. If Dessert had gambled on, he could have maybe put it away. Agaman had a header just past the post. So I think the second half we saw a bit more of what it could be, but I think there are definitely teething issues, like I said.
Even, so I was just going to ask you, going into the second half, did you expect Rangers to make any changes to the 11?
I thought he might have done. Just the only one I thought he might take off was going to be Kieran Dowell, or maybe Max Aarons as well. Although Kieran Dowell being part of the leadership group and Max Aarons playing, in fairness to him, out of position, you would say, then I think he probably just gives them leeway and gives them the chance to sort of right their wrongs in the second half and Rangers as a whole certainly did that. And yeah, as Alex said, you got to see a bit of what it's like for this Rangers team playing against a sort of low block, because Panathinaikos probably would have snapped your hand off for leaving Ibrox by losing by just a single goal. And it wouldn't have been a bad result for Rangers as well, but obviously when you're playing just over half an hour with a man advantage at home, you want to try and get a better grip on the tie, and Rangers obviously done that. And yeah, Rangers should be able to see it out now. So yeah, it's a great start for Russell Martin and Rangers. I've just got a bit here of what Finlay Curtis said after the game, which I thought it was quite interesting. I don't know if any of you's heard, but I'll just say it for the stream anyway. Hopefully keep scoring goals and put in the performances the manager wants. Hopefully get a couple more starts and present myself as a starter this year. Obviously, it's good to have that bit of competition with all the players, but I'm obviously looking to push players out the way and start.
Wow. That's big words, big confidence from a young man. I feel so old. An 18-year-old scored for Rangers tonight. But anyway, yeah, that is big words from him. And if he's good enough, if he can push players out the way, we'll take it. I can't remember who said it. It was a manager, I think. It said that he might, for some reason, Jose Mourinho's popping out of my head, but it doesn't feel like something he'd say. If you're good enough, you're old enough, and that's the case. Hopefully that'll be the case with Finlay Curtis. But I think it's definitely the right attitude to have.
I'd agree with that. Getting in there to the second half, and I think we needed to see a response for Rangers. It didn't take long for Jack Butland to get pulled into action again. And Alex, if there was any doubt on Jack Butland being the number one at Rangers, I think he just proved his worth in the first 46 minutes of this game, because by that point he'd already made 3 absolutely terrific saves and probably kept Rangers from being completely out of the tie.
Aye, definitely. That was the Jack Butland that we want to see. That was the Jack Butland we saw in year one, week in, week out. That was the Jack Butland we only saw in stints last season, not nearly enough. I think I don't know why, but I always think back to it was a pre-season game against Ajax last season, and he made a few errors, and I feel like that was people weren't paying attention to that because it was a pre-season game, but maybe that was an indicator to the season. And he also had that weird, mysterious leg bleed in January, early January, that ruled him out for a while, which gave Liam Kelly his initial stint. He was in goals for that Old Firm game at Ibrox when it was a makeshift backline and all that. But yeah, back to Jack Butland. It's certainly he showed the player that came in the door the first year, and hopefully for the Rangers supporters, he will continue to play in this vein of form.
And even just when the game was maybe getting a bit, down, the crowd were going a bit quiet, nothing much was happening, Rangers suddenly hit straight with Finlay Curtis, and it makes a mark on his Rangers career. He gets it going, it puts Rangers 1-0 up, probably right when they needed it, and you've got to say it completely changed the complex of the game.
Yeah, definitely. A massive goal, a massive moment for him. And he has no real right to shoot from there. He's quite far out, and he just has a pop at it. Obviously, deflects off Palmer Brown. I think his name is the USA the centre back, and helps it past the goalkeeper. And yet at that point, Panathinaikos had been creating chances. Rangers had their chances as well, but the game was so tight, and Rangers obviously took massive confidence getting the goal ahead, and then the red card only helps them from there out, and now they can look forward to the tie next week with a lot of confidence. As I said, it's by no means finished, but 2-0 is an ideal lead to take over there, and now they'll be the players won't be looking yet, but the fans will be looking to the next round. I believe Servette beat Victoria Pilsen 1-0 tonight in Czech Republic. Although looking at the stats, it looked like Victoria Pilsen dominated most of the game, so that one's still very much in the balance.
Yeah, it's not often Alex Neil McCann any praise, but he was spot on tonight. From the beginning, the first player they picked up when Rory Hamilton asked him about the team was Finlay Curtis. He was so high praised on the guy, and he spoke about how cool, calm and collected he is, and he showed that with a goal.
Yeah, he did. Just that was it was a finish in the vein of as if he's been doing that at that level in front of 50,000 people for years. Like the way he took the first touch, like I mentioned earlier, and he just had a go. And that's been an issue of mine and many supporters for the past few years. I don't think Rangers players have a go enough. And tonight we've seen two excellent goals from outside the box. And the thing is, it's funny. There's no harm in having a shot, and most fans, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. If you have a shot from outside the box, and you balloon it over the bar or whatever, you'll go, unlucky, mate. You know what I mean? But if someone takes 2, 3, 4 touches and tries to overplay it and loses it, that's when you get annoyed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There is definitely scenarios to shoot and to not shoot, but both scenarios, the players were quite right to take the shot. They both created the space for themselves in a dangerous area, and they both let fly, and the keeper didn't really have any chance for either of them.
Aye, and I'd agree with that. There's definitely times to shoot. I mean, I've been in the stadiums where there's been ridiculous times and people shoot and shoot at people from like 35 yards and it's your left eye and you're like, what are you talking about? But Curtis got spot on, so did Gassama as well. Ethan, the next major talking point in the game's obviously the red card for 2 yellows. And this is another part of Curtis's game I like. He's got the attacking ability, he can shoot really well. He's got the defensive ability, he can drop back well. And he's smart as well. He knew to draw in that foul on the Panathinaikos player. And it was a clear second yellow and a clear red card.
Yeah, and I think he was that's what I mean in the first half. He was doing the kind of ugly stuff in the game that you wouldn't really associate with a winger. There was a couple of times he baited the defenders into fouls, and obviously that one comes to a massive advantage for Rangers because the right back, the Panathinaikos right back, was probably one of their better players on the night. And then as soon as they go down to 10, they have to reshape their thoughts, and they're just trying to keep it at 1-0 at that point rather than push for an equaliser, which they might have got had it been 11v11. But you can't take anything away for Rangers. They carried out their game plan perfectly, and it's a massive result for Russell Martin, and he'll take massive confidence into the next game, and then hopefully the next round.
Aye, Alex. It didn't take long for Rangers to start building on the pressure. I think it was about the 65th minute, and Curtis picked up the ball again, puts in an absolutely wonderful cross, by the way, and Dowell just misses it with a header just by a bit. That was the real chance to go 2-0 up. Obviously, you'd end up going 2-0 up, but how good is it to see even Curtis creating chances like that as well?
Yeah, it's good. I think we've spoken about it so much, but the way he's influenced the game in so many different ways, it just shows sort of the different tools he can use as a player. He can create, he can score, he can defend, he can work really, really hard. And we spoke about it on the show before. This is a kid who knows what it means. He's grown up around it, and he knows what it is to play for Rangers and wear that badge on his shirt. So I think that's a massive element as to why he worked so hard tonight. And as for Kieran Dowell, that header was very close. I could see what he was trying to do. I think he was unlucky with that one. And, we've slated him a little bit. But see, to be fair, I think he started coming into the game a little bit as well, just before he came off. He had a couple of chances with that header, and there was one where he bent it to the back post, and it was just over Raskin and Curtis, I think, were both there, and he was creating a little bit more. So I'm not necessarily ready to turn on him yet, but if he starts again next week and he does that again, it puts out that kind of performance, I probably won't be too happy with him. But he can lead from the bench as far as I'm concerned if he does that again.
Ethan, it only took 3 minutes for another big chance for Rangers. It was Nico Raskin that managed to get 2 shots off, injured the goalkeeper in the process. I think it was his elbow that got hurt, and at this point you're just waiting for Rangers to get that second goal.
Yeah, you were, because they were just peppering the Panathinaikos goal, and they didn't have any answer for it. Whereas in the first half, they were sitting pretty, you could say, although they didn't find the net themselves. They were keeping Rangers at bay pretty easily. But once they went down to 10 men and Rangers found their flow in the second half, it only looked like there was going to be one winner. And yeah, the point I was going to make actually was it looks like, just looking at this game, I think Joe Rothwell is going to have a massive part to play for Rangers this season, possibly more of a part than what we might have expected, because he done that role very well, and I think he'll be a starter for quite a while if he keeps turning in performances like that.
He moves like a guy that is probably as young as Finlay Curtis. It doesn't seem like he moves like, I think he's about 30. He moves about like he's about 5 or 6 years younger than that. It was sensational in the game. Rangers made the triple substitution, Igaman, Dessers and Gassama, and it did not take long for Gassama to get on the score sheet. 78 minutes. Rangers win 2-0. Win 2-0. Well, they did win 2-0, but they scored to make it 2-0. Gassama picks up the ball, cuts in from the left, and hits an absolute wonder strike into the top corner.
Yeah, it was really nice, and I think Neil McCann pointed that out in commentary. The way he shapes up is as if he's going to bend it, and maybe it's in the back of the goalie's mind. It's already happened to him, so he's getting ready to dive to that far corner, and he just shuts it off and fires it near post, and the keeper's left, rooted to the spot, and Gassama's wheeling away, celebrating his first Rangers goal like a couple of minutes in. It was quite funny actually. I chose one of the excellent times to go to the toilet, and I heard my brother shouting downstairs. So wash my hands quick as possible and ran downstairs to see the replays. I always do that. I always miss the goals, but it was a great finish and a great start to Gassama's Rangers career.
Ethan, how delighted do you think Russell Martin would have been at that point? Because, it wasn't plain sailing for them in this game. There was a lot of mistakes in the first half. How delighted do you think he would have been that his side had a comfortable lead in this?
Yeah, I think he would have been, after the first half and how tight the game was, he'll be absolutely delighted to pull through a really solid result. Because usually at this point in the season, well, not this point of the season, but this point of the season, when the season's starting, and you've got a new manager who's trying to play a completely new style, you expect things to not always go completely 100%, and they never did. But in these qualifier matches, it doesn't need to be pretty. You just need to get through, and Rangers took a massive step towards that tonight. I thought in the second half especially, I think I've said that they were a lot better. The thing that I thought that probably was the furthest away from what Russell Martin wanted to be was probably their pressing. There was a period right at the end of the first half where there was one incident where they surrounded one of the Panathinaikos players, and took the ball back, and I think that's what he'll expect multiple times in a match. But it's only natural that when the first time these players are playing together in a competitive match, some of them that in this new style, that it's not all going to be perfect. But when you win 2-0 at home against a really solid European outfit, keeping a clean sheet in the process, of course, then they things are kind of an afterthought.
Alex, Stephen Thompson was on BBC Sport and he said something that I can help but bring up. He said, every time Gassama has the ball, you can see the crowd get on their feet. And I think that's the type of player that he is. You know, he is an electric guy. He'll pick up the ball, he'll try and take on as many people as possible. It's something that I feel Rangers have been missing, especially at wide in the recent couple of seasons. I think the last player that Rangers had that showed that type of quality was probably Vaclav Terney. It seems like Martin's certainly strengthening in that area to be able to bring in guys that will take the ball on the wing and take people on and cut in and have shots.
Yeah, definitely. And he's, although Rangers got him from Sheffield Wednesday, he came through the PSG Academy, and we have seen the PSG Academy produce some cracking players over the years. And I don't think you get through and make your first team debut alongside Lionel Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe if you're not a good player. So I think it's definitely a great sort of get for Rangers. I don't imagine I don't know the fee exactly, but I don't imagine he costs too much either because of the sort of financial issues going on at Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously, they've released quite a lot of players. They haven't released. The players have gone free because of unpaid wages. One that has been linked to Rangers has been Josh Windass. Back to Gassama. He is one that gets the fans on their feet, and like I said earlier, he just looked electric. And Rangers, I feel like have been really lacking in the winger positions. We usually have about one good one a year. A couple of years ago, it was Abdallah Sima, then it was Václav Černý. This year, it looks like it might be Diego Gassama, but hopefully they can bring in some extra backup, especially on that right-hand side.
So, Ethan, it did finish 2-0. Not much more I noticed there. I think Diomande had a shot on target, but a dream start for Russell Martin considering the circumstances. The first game in his managerial career, and it came out as a win and probably a really big tie.
Yeah, definitely. How many managers have you seen that have came into the club and they've had to face such a big match like that? It's unusual circumstances that a manager comes in and their first tie is such an important one. And I don't think he'll be too worried. He'll obviously go and analyse the stuff that went wrong. But he'll be delighted that they've pulled through because I know he said before the game that it wouldn't be a season-defining tie, but Rangers need to be in at least the Europa League probably, and this is a massive step towards that. A really successful evening for Rangers as a football club.
Alex, you now face a prospect taking over to Greece to take on Panathinaikos. How do you think Russell Martin will prepare so quickly? Because obviously he's had a bit of time in pre-season. How much adjusting do you think he'll do for this second leg?
I'm not sure. I think there's a pre-season friendly against Middlesbrough on Sunday, so I think he'll maybe use that to maybe tinker a few things, mess about, see what happens, try some things, because obviously you want to win every game, but pre-season friendlies, nobody's really bothering their shirt if you win or lose or draw or whatever. So maybe he'll use that to, maybe get a bit of fitness in the players and maybe try out a few things. I think what he will want to get into their heads is they need to start better. Because if they start the way they did, apart from the first 5 minutes, if they start the way they did, there's a great chance Panathinaikos can get back into this tie, make it competitive, make it nervy, because we all saw how they cut through, and they were actually, I think, apart from some wonderful saves and a bit of luck, they should have been in front. So it was so in terms of the changes being made, I'm not sure. Maybe, I don't know, try and get someone to play in that right wing slot over Kieran Dow. I'm happy to give him another chance as well. I won't mind too much, whatever the manager decides, really. But maybe try and maybe start Curtis on the right or Gassama on the right, and have them to there. If Cyril Dessers is fit, I would probably start him over Danilo. I think you saw, Dessers at one point won a great knock on. He was getting, stuck in, and he wasn't so isolated up there. Midfield, I wouldn't change anything. Backline, probably wouldn't change anything despite my grievances about Max Aarons. I probably wouldn't change anything for that. But the main thing is start fast, and I think he will be working on. Obviously, he still will be working on his style of playing, the way he wants to press, the way he wants to pass and move the ball every day, because he's just in the door basically, and he's still working. But I think there needs to be a real focus on that for the game next week.
I'll throw this question out to both of you, and it was something that really intrigued me, that even when Panathinaikos, and I know they had the red card and stuff, but even when it was 1-0 to Rangers, and any other manager, I feel like if this come on last season, he probably would have brought on a few defensive substitutions. But Martin, when he brought on that triple sub at attacking players, you could see he was like, no, I want more, I want to go for this. It feels like, if I was a Rangers fan, I'd be very happy with that, because it feels like any other manager in the past would have maybe brought on a couple of defenders or a couple of defensive midfielders to try and see the game.
Yeah, I was really pleased with that, actually. And then he brought off... It was delayed for some reason because of the fourth official, but then he brought off Joe Rothwell and brought on Nadeem Bayrami, who was raging by that point because he'd been trying to get subbed on for 5 minutes. I don't know what happened there. But, I really liked that. And you could see the intent was to try and kill off the game. It didn't happen. But I like that attitude.
I thought it was brave from Russell Martin, although I think it's maybe what he had to do, because obviously we know the game at a sort of when both teams had 11, you would probably say Panathinaikos had most of the game. So if he'd maybe sat back and sort of tried for a 1-0 win, take the advantage to Greece, then a 1-0 was obviously not as good as a 2-0, and he probably suspected that Panathinaikos were going to sort of resort to try to keep that 1-0 lead. But yeah, as you said, it still was a decision he had to make, and he made the right one ultimately, because they did go on to get that second goal, and now they're in a really good position. But as Alex said, they'll have to start well, because if Panathinaikos, if it's nothing each and Panathinaikos get a goal before the 80th minute, then never mind the 10th minute, then it'll be squeaky bum time for Rangers.
I think obviously it's going to be a bit different circumstances next week going away to Greece, because I think anyway it's predicted to be a lot warmer. So how do you think the players will adapt to that? Not just playing a different sort of Panathinaikos to maybe what they see in the second half, be quite warm as well. And let's be honest, I don't think Rangers are going to be expecting to go there and dominate possession, so they're going to be a lot more secure defensively as well. And for what we've seen the first half, Rangers were prone to a mistake now and again.
Yeah. And this is maybe a question that I throw to Alex, but I think the Rangers didn't go abroad for pre-season this season, did
they? No, they went to England's training ground.
So I think this is maybe where I don't know, like warm weather training would maybe help Rangers in the pre-season. Obviously, it makes not much of a difference.
It was 25 degrees when they were there, so
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, that's maybe a fair point because it will be obviously at night in Greece, and they'll be used to playing in that temperature a lot more than any of the Rangers players will be anyway. So maybe that's not a very well crafted point, but I do think Rangers pre-season was a little bit strange, and the friendlies, I mean, especially. But it's obviously worked out for Russell Martin. They've got off to a perfect start, and it doesn't really matter now because yeah, they're doing it in the competitive games, and that's all that really matters. So whatever it takes, and yeah.
Well, Alex, like Panathinaikos going into this game, they were speaking about in commentary a few times how the manager specifically likes playing with possession. He likes having majority of the ball. So does Russell Martin. So going into Greece next week, how difficult do you think it's going to be for Martin and the players as well to adapt to maybe not having as much of the ball as they'd like? It will be a case that Rangers will need to take their chances probably when they come.
Yeah, I don't suspect that Russell Martin will set up with being okay with giving up the ball. I think he'll set up the same way and he'll tell them to go after it and get the ball and dominate the ball and be in control. I don't suspect him to go, all right, boys, we're playing away from home in Greece. These guys will be at home. They'll want to dominate the ball. You need to take your chances when they come. I think he'll tell them to go and get it back and make their chances. I get your point there, Robbie, but I just don't see this manager go that way, if you know what I mean.
I feel the same. I don't think that it will be how Martin thinks, but I think in terms of the way the game will end up going, it will be like tonight. I think Rangers ended up with majority of possession, if I'm right in saying. So, the Greek manager probably would have had to adapt to that in some way, shape or form, as I'm sure Martin will need to do next week. I don't think it'll be a case of Martin will turn up and switch defensively all of a sudden, but just with the way the game will probably naturally pan out, I think the Rangers players will need to get used to maybe having spells of possession where they don't have the ball.
Yeah, I think Rangers, it says he had 75% of possession tonight, which is obviously a lot.
That can't be right, surely.
That's what it says here.
Yeah, I've got that here as well, but...
And watching the game, it didn't feel like that, but I would have to tend to agree with Robbie. I don't think they'll have as much. I agree with Alex as well. I do think that Russell Martin will drill them the exact same way to say, yeah, we're going to play the same way here. We're going to keep the ball. We're going to try and dictate the pace. But I think Rangers will need to be a lot more productive with their possession next week because I think they still had way more possession in the first half. And obviously they didn't do a lot with it. The second half, they were obviously a lot better. But yeah, they'll need to be a lot more productive because I doubt they'll have as much as that in Greece, especially if that's the way Panathinaikos like to play as well.
I mean, I think it is interesting because with the possession, Alex, you look at next week and you look at some of the mistakes that Rangers made, and it'll not be like that all season. There will be some teething issues, but how crucial is it Martin gets the lineup spot on? Because I don't think Rangers next week can afford to have Max Aarons give away the ball a couple of times or the Jagger Slipper give away the ball a couple of times. It's something that when you're away from home, especially, Rangers cannot afford to let that happen.
Yeah, definitely, because you can't ride your luck forever, and Rangers did that in times tonight, and I think they did get lucky with those sort of chances that Panathinaikos didn't take, and if they give them to them again, I'm sure Rui Vitoria will be drilling into these players. If they give you these chances again, you better not miss them. So I think there definitely needs to be less carelessness, less mistakes, a bit more focus in those moments, especially from Max Aarons, because I think he got caught 2 or 3 times on the ball, which isn't good, and leaving that right hand side where I would probably say their best players were playing down. Obviously, the right back won't be available to them next week, but Facundo Pelistri certainly will. you can't give them those opportunities again, because I'm sure if they're giving them again, they'll capitalise.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't as if it was off of Panathinaikos' great pressure either. Obviously, they're pressing and forcing Rangers to hurry, but I think a lot of the sort of mistakes were unforced for the most part, and obviously it'll take Rangers time to get used to that, especially players like Max Aarons, who's probably playing a role he's never played before. James Tavernier on the other side, I think the inverted fullback role kind of plays into where he's at in his career. Obviously, he's getting older now and he's maybe not got the pace he did 5 years ago, but I think we all understand that he's technically one of the best players in Scotland still, probably. So he can come in field and get on the ball and dictate the game that way. But I think as well, Russell Martin will be telling the players, this is what you've done wrong, but we're going to play the same way. And if the mistakes happen, then it's my fault, because that's what a lot of the managers go by nowadays, that if the defenders make a mess of it, then that's the way he wants to play. He doesn't want you to clear the ball. He wants you to keep playing with it at your feet, and if that results in the ball being turned over, then he'll take the flak for that.
I understand that, but I think at one point Nicholas Raskin took that a bit to the extreme, where he was holding the ball in the 6-yard box and he got it pinched off him, and Panathinaikos nearly scored.
Yeah, I do remember that from the corner.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I think it is only natural that mistakes will happen. I'm sure at this time in a couple of months, Rangers will be a lot more fluid in playing that type of style. It does take time for players to gel in. So I think we'll see it slowly improving as time goes on. But Alex, I'll come to you first. Who was your man of the match for tonight's match?
Oh, it's tough. Findlay Curtis get it in Stadium 1. But I think I'll give it to Nicholas Raskin.
All right, Ethan, what about you?
Yeah, I'm thinking the same. I really want to give it to Finlay Curtis, obviously part of two massive moments of the game, but I thought Raskin was really, really good, especially in the second half, so I'll give it to him as well.
No, I'll go for somebody you haven't met. I'll go for Jack Butland, just because the saves they made, the importance of the saves they made, it kept Rangers in the tie. So I'd probably give it to him. Just to quickly run through some of the other games that happened tonight, there was a whole host of Premier Sports Cup games, just to run through some of them. Ross County won 8-0 against Edinburgh City, an impressive win for them. Arbroath beat Annan Athletic 6-0. That's Annan lost 6-0, 8-2 and 6-1 in the space of a week. So it's not been a great week for them. Dundee finally get a win under their belt under Stephen Presley, beating Bonnyrigg Rose 3-1. And it was big hat. Inverness beat East Kilbride 6-2. Motherwell beat Morton 3-0, and I think that was the other televised match of the evening. So, and then obviously the shocker, as Paul mentioned, Kelty Hearts beat Kilmarnock 4-3 on penalties, and which was probably the shocker of the night. So that's just a little rundown of tonight's action. Any results stand out to you guys?
Another 8 goals there. There's been a few 7-8s. It's been pretty mental in these opening games. I know, you get crazy results in the Premier, well, I'm just going to say League Cup group stages, but there's been a fair few hidings.
You've got to feel bad for Annan Athletic, man. It's no great for them. I think that's 20 goals conceded in 3 matches.
Stick to the day job.
Yeah, one that surprised me was East Kilbride. I thought they would maybe give Inverness a bit of a better game than that. Obviously 6-2 loss.
Yeah, my hometown. Not too chuffed with that one.
Yeah. Dundee, obviously massive win. Stephen Presley getting his first competitive win, so step in the right direction for them.
Leaving it late as well. 2 goals in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah. And then I'm pretty sure England are into the women's Euros final.
They are. Chloe Kelly scored in the in extra time. after Michelle Agyemang, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Equalised in the 96th minute. I didn't realise she's 19. That makes me feel old again. She's done it again for them, and then obviously England progress an extra time. However,
hopes again. Well, possibly.
However, I think Spain will beat Germany and Spain will win because Spain's team is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. They've got the likes of. I'm going to sound really bad here because I'm forgetting a lot of the names. Bonmati, the left winger, what's her name? She plays for Barcelona as well. They've got Putellas. I do know others, but all their names are escaping me now. It's terrible. But Spain have a ridiculous team. I'll see if I can find it. You guys chat amongst yourselves.
Ethan, it's going to be a pretty big game in Greece next week, it's fair to say. Do you think if Rangers do end up going out, and that's a big if because they've got a really good advantage, how do you think Russell Martin will prepare the team to potentially play Besiktas or Shakhtar Donetsk? That is two, and I don't want to again be disrespectful to Panathinaikos, but that is Besiktas certainly is a pretty hard game.
Yeah, that is, but they're both games that you would expect in Champions League qualifying, never mind Europa League qualifying. So yeah, that would be very difficult, and that is probably why this game does become season defining. Because, well, I mean, that's not to say Rangers would go on to lose that tie if they were to lose to Panathinaikos, which I don't think they will do now. But yeah, you really don't want to be going into that. And Rangers will really fancy their chances going to play against Servette or Victoria Pilsen, and then it's only one game left. And I believe some of the teams, I'll actually go and check some of the teams they could face, but I think it's your Benficas and Club Brugge's and stuff like that, teams that are sort of seasoned Champions League level teams. So
I'll go you guys here as well. It'd be nice to get your predictions for Hibs and Dundee United in their respective European ties as well.
I've found the Spain women's team, and these were the guys that I could think of. So Claudia Pina, Barcelona left winger, she's really really good. Parayello, also a Barcelona left winger. Ona Battle, a lot of Barcelona players in this team. Who else is there?
There's a good Spanish centre back that I always seem to pass on FIFA. That's where there's one good centre back.
There's a couple of good, and they all play for Barcelona.
Yeah, Irene Paredes maybe is the one you're thinking of.
I think so.
And then Mariona Caldente plays for Arsenal as well. So Olga Carmona, Real Madrid, left back. So they've got a fair few really good players in that team, and I think Spain will take the Women's Euros.
Yeah, I agree.
Right,
moving on to the...
just thank you so much for joining me tonight. Before you go, as I said, I do want to get your predictions. So, Midtjylland play Hib. Ethan, we'll start with you. What's your score prediction for that game?
Unfortunately, I think they'll have too much for Hibs. I'm going with 2-1 to Midtjylland, but hopefully David Gray can bring them back to Easter Road and get them through.
All right, Alex, what about you?
I think on our predictions the other day, I said the same. But however, if they do lose in Denmark by maybe a goal, I think it's not over, and they maybe could bring it back at Easter Road.
All right, I'm going to go 1-8 away at Midtjylland. I think Hibs pick up the draw going back to Easter Road. I'm confident Hibs will get through this, and I think it's a pretty nice tie waiting for them in that round as well. So, I think they'll get through. But Dundee United also playing you. They play Una Strazen at 7:45. Alex, we'll start with you this time. What's your score prediction for this one?
5-0 to Dundee United.
I'm
going 2-0 Dundee United.
Yeah, I'll go somewhere in between. I'll go 3-0 Dundee United. Again, thank you so much for joining me, you guys.
It's been a pleasure.
No problem. We will be back on Thursday. I'm not too sure of the times because I think Hibs are an early kick-off and Dundee United are the late, so we will be live before and after at some point. Just make sure to turn the notification bell on, and we will be live at some point before and after the games. But I've been Robbie, that has been Alex, that has been Ethan, and we will see you guys in the next